Hey, this is our first show for Couple Matters. We surprised you all instead of announcing our first episode. We decided just to go ahead and just jump on and start our first episode. So, welcome to our Couple Matters podcast. My name is Rodney,
and my name is Philonda.
Yeah, so we've been married 25 years.
Yeah,
we've been married 25 years, and we're going to be using this podcast to share a lot of our life and a lot of the lessons that we've learned through some of the choices we made, some good and some not that good. So we welcome you all to be a part of our conversation. This show will be 30 minutes at a time. And today we wanted to talk about one of the most dangerous words when it comes to relationships. It's the S word, not the four-letter word, but the word submit. And when you hear that word submit, so what comes to mind when you hear that word?
Now, I just think of...
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help?
Siri had an answer.
Siri, I'm sorry. My phone went off. Okay, so the first thing I think about when I hear the word submit is be in agreement.
Oh.
That's what I think of, but that came through growth.
So now let's go back to what you first thought about when you heard the word, because that's what a lot of people struggle with.
Submit means that my man has the final say. I don't have a voice. I don't have a say. And what he say goes. That was an issue.
Yeah. When I hear the word submit, when I was younger, when I would hear the word submit, it was always like, well, you, the man in the relationship, you got to have the final say. It's all the weight is on you when it comes to the relationship. And so I didn't know how I really felt about that word submit, because I don't like to have somebody like as a yes person, but I think we have to learn that we got to submit to each other. And I think you have something you wanted to read. This is actually, a scripture we actually use in our marriage to help us to really understand what it really means.
Well, and before I even share the scripture dealing with submit, I'm going to an online dictionary, Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and the word submit, one definition is to yield to governance or authority. Mm-hmm. I'm a teacher, so yield has a positive connotation to it. So it means that you're giving in a sense. And definitely in any relationship, there's some give and take. And then also it says to put forward as an opinion or contention. Okay. So we submit that the charge is not proved, is what it's saying here. Mm-hmm. And it says to yield oneself to the authority or will of another. So you're surrendering. That is so key too. Surrender. Okay. So sometimes we don't like to surrender. And so that's a couple definitions: to surrender or to yield. And then you want to say something before?
No, I'm just listening.
You like,
I'm just listening.
Like it was something good.
I'm just listening to what it's saying.
Was that good? The definition that you was feeling it?
I like the surrender part. I'll explain that after you're done.
All right. And then as far as an actual scripture, this is Ephesians 5:22-33. I'm only going to read a portion starting with 22, and then I am going to end with 25. And so it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself to it. So I think that a lot of times we just get stuck at the very first verse, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. And we never really get to verse 25 when it's saying, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Well, we know that Christ loves us unconditionally. So that means that the husband would have to love us unconditionally and would want to have our best interests and not be self-centered. So that's good stuff.
I'm thinking that sounds real good, but that ain't how we started. So I was like, I don't really care about that right now. Let's talk about the battles that we had because of not really fully understanding that. Because I think that's what a lot of people go through is we look at that word submit as a negative thing, but I have to submit to you also. So,
well, I don't really see, how did you get that out of that you have to submit to me also?
Well, because if Christ is the head and we're supposed to be partners, I'm still supposed to be considering you a partner, not a subordinate.
So for me, I was not there. I didn't like the word submit. I'm like, I'm okay, that's there. I'm not submitting. I'm gonna do my own thing. And I gotta have my voice. I have to state my opinion. You can't just make a decision without me. And that caused friction because if I felt like my opinion was not seeked out, or if I felt as if my opinion didn't matter, then that's where there was friction.
Like, well, I think we need to give an example.
Well, I mean, so for example, you know, as we were preparing for this and just thinking, so we ended up having our first child was anointed, which is our daughter. And then shortly after, because our son and daughter, they are 14 months apart. So
I thought it was 15.
I think it's 14 months.
Oh.
But I mean, okay. All right. So anyway, they're very close. Okay. So he decided that he was going to take my daughter to Toledo to stay with his parents, which are her grandparents. And I was not in agreement because he didn't even ask me. He just came up to my child and said what he was going to do. Well, who does that? And then I couldn't really have an opinion or respond or react because we're in a public place. So I had to just go with the flow. And I just was feeling some type of way about it. And I know that he ended up making that choice for a reason and for my sanity so that I could have a break before our son ended up being birthed into this world. But I just really felt like, how could you make that decision? You know, that I wasn't okay with you just taking our baby girl to Toledo and just letting her stay there for the weekend.
Well, yeah, that was, I would say when I did that, I wouldn't recommend the way I did it because I learned that I really didn't consider you with the decision. I was thinking that I was trying to look out for my wife because at the time our son was on the way and, our daughter, she was busy, so we were both tired. So I figured before he came that we would need to take a break. We would need to take at least a week or so. I think she went away for a week before he came or something like that, just to make sure that we are charged up and ready to receive the next kid. But when I look back at it, I should have just really just called you and talked this through and really, I don't know if you would have understood still though, because you still had your mind made up. But that's something that, a lesson I had to learn is that I have to still submit to you if I'm going to do something to make sure that you're in agreement with it.
And so when you say submit, it's basically seeking out my opinion, asking me how I feel. And then also it's giving me an opportunity to see what you're thinking is behind making a particular decision. So it gives me the opportunity to ask you questions. And then at that particular point, I do feel that it's a partnership because we're discussing it. And I do agree. With your first child, some of us are a little special. I was a little special with my first one. So I pretty much I didn't care. Like my kids just didn't spend a night at other people's homes, including my own parents. And so my kids were always with me, and I just felt like, hey, I don't want my kids going anywhere and spending the night until they can talk. And so, however, in retrospect and looking back on that, it was one of the best decisions. And so, as long as, he's not asking me to go out and kill somebody, then, it's all good. So, I mean, I know that's a little drastic, but I'm just saying. And so pretty much, I think that's what's really key, that we have the opportunity to communicate about it. I can ask you questions. I can tell you my view. I can listen to your view, and then we come to a happy medium. And sometimes coming to that happy medium, though, is you still making the decision. But then as a wife, I have to trust you in your decision making.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think, but I also have to learn that it's not always that I know the best too. So I had to learn that, because I don't know about some of you guys out there who are married, who are in relationships. You don't have to be married. You can be dating, whatever. But, I was raised to always think, the man knows, supposed to make the final decision, because the man is responsible for what happens in the home. But as I've grown, I've learned that, yes, I am responsible, but it's a collective thing, and that if we don't work together, then we won, not a team. And to me, if you don't function like a team in your marriage or in your relationship, you really don't have much there. And so when I think about a team, I think about, basketball, point guard and stuff like that. And you know what a point guard does?
They make the decisions on the court. They get everybody in the position. That's what I'm assuming. That's close.
The point guard is the coach on the floor. The point guard is the coach on the floor. Kind of like LeBron James is a point. He's point forward, but he's really on the floor. Chris Paul is probably the best example that I can think about. If you watch how he plays, everybody feeds off of his direction and how he runs the game. So that's really what, somebody's got to be the point guard in the family.
So what allows somebody to be a good point guard?
I would say humility. You got to be humble enough to know that you don't know it all. Like in Chris Paul's situation, he's not a center, so he ain't gonna go in there and try to dunk on somebody bigger than him. He's gonna give the ball to the bigger person and let him take care of the person down low. He's not gonna try to defend somebody, twice his size. He'll let somebody else defend him, and he'll play his role. So that's what I would need to do.
All right, so pretty much, in case you're just joining us, we are talking about the S word, the dreaded S word, which is submit. So in a relationship, oftentimes we're having to yield to one another. We're having to come to a compromise, and pretty much we're sharing our experience as a couple with other people. And what you just said with regards to Chris Paul, he knows what his strengths are and what his limitations are. So I think that is really awesome. And it's really key to know or have self-awareness about our limitations as well as our strengths. So that means, for example, when it comes to budgeting, right? If somebody
that's another one word, that's a B word,
is better with budgeting the funds and crunching the numbers, then we need to trust that individual to do that particular task. So it's being able to play off of each other's strengths.
Yeah.
And to fully trust each other to operate in different roles within the relationship.
Yeah, it's definitely. So submission feeds off of making sure that each person can respect each other's gifts. And making sure that each person realizes that this is a team, and if we don't want to get blown up on the court, we better make sure we work together as a team, because I've seen teams when they don't function the way they're supposed to, and the game goes pretty bad. So,
okay.
And an example is, I think about when Anointed and Josiah, that's our kids, when they were little. Yeah, I call myself trying to be,
I know what you about
yeah,
to
real
say.
sweet and surprise my wife. So, this is that man thing that was in me that I'm gonna blame it on testosterone, but I wanted to make sure that I surprised her because I was like, we needed a better car, we needed more room, and then I was like, I want a nicer car though too, because we had a smaller car and I wanted something nice. So some of it was my ego too, but I saw a nice Jeep Cherokee at the time, which it was nice. It was leather, everything you wanted. Nice sunroof. It was beautiful, and the car we had was very practical. It was like okay, but I kind of talked myself into the fact that my family needed a better car, and that I would surprise her with this. I didn't consult with Philonda about it. I never did. I was dealing with the car dealership, so called myself thinking about, if you've seen the Lexus commercial for Christmas time, the Lexus commercial is the best example. Person pulls up in the driveway, got the bow and ribbon on the car. The spouse don't even know that they wouldn't get the car. They just all excited and just jumping up and down. That is the biggest lie in the world. Don't ever, ever do that unless you pay cash for the car. Because that was part of my inspiration for making that decision when we were much younger was, I'm going to go surprise her. I'm going to go get this car. And when I pull up, she's going to be so happy because we got a better car, we got a nicer car, and it's going to be just like the Lexus commercial. Well, I pulled up one day with the car. I know she was shocked because I saw her face. You didn't know how to really handle it. I don't even know if you remember what through your mind when you saw it. Because I saw a smile. I was like, is she happy or... So I don't know, then I had to explain. I had some explaining to do, like like Lucy, that the fact that, I started sweat. I'm actually sweating thinking about it now. That was over 20 years ago, too. Why am I thinking about it? But the fact that I was thinking about the fact that I increased the car note. I put negative equity, which we're going to talk about that one day. That's the two words you want to avoid. But I put negative equity in because I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to make things bigger and better for my family. I'm the man. I'm going to make this decision. I didn't submit by talking to my wife and saying, hey, is this a good idea for us? So we ended up having the car for, I think, about 2 years. Then it ended up having engine problems. Had to get rid of that. So
still negative equity going into the next car.
Yeah. So it was like the snowball effect, and it turned into an avalanche. All because of my decision not to submit to my wife. And that's a message to the men out there, is that we still have a responsibility to submit to our wives. This is not like we're a dictator and we're running the whole show. We run the show together. And that's one of the principles I had to learn, because it's a hard lesson. And it took years to get through that lesson.
I mean, it's so much of a process. And I think just having a wrong mindset about the word submit can just cause problems within itself. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important just to start to tear that thing apart and to even decide for you as a couple what that means exactly and how that is going to unfold in your household and what submitting looks like exactly. And mm-hmm. So again, one of the key things that you said is that we have to function and operate as a team. Mm-hmm. And that also means that whatever moves that we make, we have to consider one another, and we have to be in communication with one another to make sure that we're on the same page. However, once again, when you basically come to a point sometimes where you may not necessarily fully agree, but you hash it out. You talk about the pros, you talk about the cons, and then you basically need to find a happy medium. But again, mm-hmm. the key thing is that you all have to be in discussion. Yeah. And then that means that people are not going to feel as if they're being disrespected, or that their voice is not being heard, or that they're not being respected, or that their opinion doesn't matter. And so what's the name of the show that we were watching on BET last night with Jill Scott? What is that called?
Oh, First Wives Club.
First Wives Club. Let me tell you something. Okay, so if you don't watch the show, I don't really watch it all the time either, so I can't say.
I actually like the show,
characters.
so I'm a hold my hands up. I like the show. It's funny.
It is a good show, and from the couple episodes that I have watched. However, let me just say that one of the couples on there, she is married to someone who's running for an office, and she has not been receiving quality time with him. And basically, she was trying to get his attention, let him know that she wanted to spend time with him. And she had turned off the TV, and he flipped and was like, wait a minute, I was watching that. I'm trying to see what's going on with my campaign. And she was like, but wait, like, what about me? And she was saying, I support you in everything that you do, but you don't ever support me. So when we are submitting to one another, you have to be willing to support one another, because if not, that's going to draw a wedge in between. And so she ended up packing up her clothes, deciding to leave. And rather than him saying, I'm sorry, I don't want you to leave, he simply just asked her, well, where are you going? You can't be serious right now. I'm in the middle of a campaign. What am I going to do? And you're my campaign manager. He didn't say anything about their relationship. So that let me know that it was a one-sided situation. So you can't have a one-sided situation, and you can't be in a relationship and just only think about yourself and only be in it to get your needs met. But you have to be willing to make sure that you are meeting your spouse's needs, your significant other's needs, and you can't be selfish.
So submission can have some good benefits in.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
You know, if you speak in somebody's love language and you are meeting that individual's needs, you speak in their language, they pretty much probably do anything that you want.
Anything.
Yeah, anything.
Oh, well, I don't really know what else to say about that, but I know that well, yeah, we still doing a show, so we gotta stop. What Jamia say?
She says that's a work relationship. No love, just profit. Ooh, yes, that is a work relationship that I was just talking about, which is crazy. It's very crazy. So you gotta know, what you're dealing with, and you have to be willing to put in the work, and you have to be willing. Once again, what you were saying, didn't you say something about you have to be humble, and you have to be willing to put your ego aside? And so that's for all of us. We have to be willing to serve one another.
So submission leads to humility, it leads to serving, it leads to benefits. Submission is like kind of it seems like it's like a cornerstone. It's like in the building, when the building,
the foundation.
You see that cornerstone in the building. That's like the most important stone in the building, where they etch the date that it was built and stuff. And if that's one of the blocks that you put in, and we're not saying this because we just experts. Well, I'll say we are experts now, because 25 plus years of marriage and 28 years being together, I would say we're experts now, but
we're still working at it every day, though.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
We're still learning each other, still working this thing.
But submission is something that initially very few people like.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Why do you think women don't really like the word submission in a relationship?
Again, I think when you hear the term submission, you feel like you're having to just allow him to make all the decisions, and you don't get to make any decisions. And it just seems so like not in these times, because historically it was almost just women were sort of like kids. You could be seen but not heard, or I
didn't say that.
No,
I'm just letting them know, letting the women know that I didn't say that, so they don't be getting out there ruining the podcast saying I said that.
So historically, at one point, women were just caregivers, and they were homemakers, and they ended up taking care of the family. And it was like the man brings home the bacon. Because he brings home the bacon, then he gets to make all the decision making. But times have changed, honey. Okay. So basically, it's all about partnership. And so I think, like I said, when you ended up taking a look at Ephesians 5:22-33, when it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. So if you look at it from the perspective of I'm not doing this for this man, but I'm doing it unto the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, you can get on the right page and the right mindset, because God is not going to steer us wrong.
But now we got to talk to people who not.
Okay.
Because everybody ain't thinking that way. So
okay. Well, even
we got a lot of people listening. So
even still, ultimately, even though we may not say that we're believers or we're spiritual or we have like a connection with a higher being, at the end of the day, a lot of times it goes back to the Bible, but people just remixed it and put a certain thing on it. Okay. And so even in this, like I said, sometimes we don't get to the 25th verse when it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. That means that he's going to do right by you.
Right.
He's going to make sure that he's making a decision that is going to be remarkable for you all as a whole, as a unit. Okay. So you have to, so like even I see Mia is saying trust, respect, faith, teamwork. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is trust, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes you're having to just have faith in one another. But as you said, for example, if I'm not great at budgeting, I got to trust you to budget. And I got to trust that you're going to crunch the numbers and do everything, because I already know that that's not my lane. That's not my gifting. So we have to play off of one another with regards to.
So if I say we only spend $100 on groceries, it's okay?
I mean, hey, that might need to be in a particular month, and I might need to get with that. And that means that I'm expecting you to get creative. You know what I mean? So it's possible, because I've seen it, be done. It's very possible. So yes.
Okay. All right.
I haven't always been there. I say yes now.
That's because we definitely know that we've had some battles that we've had to grow through. And that's what this podcast really is about. It's about us opening our lives up, and we feel like we're qualified at this point in our marriage to really share more of our marriage with everybody.
Yes, you can have ramen noodles and then have some turkey kibasi. That can be a meal.
I used to have donuts. Me and my brothers was poor.
Fish.
We used to have donuts. We used to put sugar on bread and ball it up. That was donuts.
That's not healthy. So don't do that. Don't do that. Okay.
That was our donuts.
Also, you can do things that will last for days. Spaghetti. Okay. We know that can go for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm not big
so you
on
can
leftovers,
spread things, but hey, if you say the budget is 100, you got to get with the program.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and you just got to be creative. And then maybe you'll have a chicken flavor one day for some ramen noodles, and you got a beef flavor another day. So you mixing it up, you got tuna with your eggs. Then you got tuna with some Granny Applesmith.
Well,
grind it up.
I know we're getting close. We're getting close to the end of our time, because our podcast is only 30 minutes, because we want to keep you wanting more. We're not going to finish one subject in one show. We got to keep it going. But something to think about is if somebody was to come to us, younger in their relationship, and they're dealing with the S word, how would we handle that? And that's an important issue, because I know that if they don't know what we know, they will look at it like, hey, what you trying to do? Are you trying to take my shine or whatever? I'm educated too. I know just as much as you. How you gonna tell me what to do? That's gonna happen. So how we handle that? Because we ask people to ask questions too. You can send questions to us about relationships, the S word, whatever.
So I mean, really, at the end of the day, you have to take a step back and just say, how is my
donuts?
How's my significant other honoring me right now? In what ways am I being honored now? In what ways am I being listened to right now? And once you can have some self-awareness about how
to keep it fresh in marriage. 16 years. Yes, Jamia. You and Jeff put that work in.
So you gotta first just do a self-check for yourself. Why are you even feeling that way? Do you have control issues? And are you bringing those control issues from childhood trauma and putting that into your relationship?
Most likely, yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying. That's what they probably do. Yeah, it's probably the root of that. Yeah.
And then also, are you bringing in mindsets based on your upbringing that needs to be remixed and changed? Because in the event, if you were raised in a household where there were all females and they were doing the doggone thing, they were bringing in the eggs and the bacon and making sure that everything ended up being taken care of. And so, for example, one of my aunts, she never had this conversation with me. She never told me anything, but as a result of me watching her pretty much.
Don't worry about that. We're running short on time. That's our alarm. Keep
so basically, what I was going to say is, I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like my aunt. I'm going to get my own place, and my dude can move in with me. And if he don't act right, I'm going to put him right out because it's my place.
You know what? We can stop right there. Again, we're gonna talk about that next week, because that's a serious subject, because we do have to address that. And I'm just excited what we're going to be talking about throughout this whole podcast, relationships. The S word, we're going to continue talking about this next week because it's very important. I think it's a foundation that's going to help set the tone for a whole relationship. And no, we're not going to be arguing and fighting when we're not on the show about this. So y'all don't have to worry about that.
All right. Can I just say one thing to close out?
She got 30 seconds.
All right. If you're looking to keep it fresh, do something that you don't normally do. I don't know. Walk around in a t-shirt and some heels. If that's not what you're used to, all right, go ahead and put some rose petals on the floor. Have a note on the door, letting your king or queen know how special they are and why they a bag of chips and all of that. And do something real simple. It's the small stuff sometimes. If you know that they love a certain snack, get that snack, put a note on it, and I'm telling you, it'll just get to the heart. That's some ways to keep it fresh. All right? Continue to date. Have fun. Whatever fun is to you.
We want to thank you all for watching Couple Matters. We're going to be talking about relationships. Just like I said, we've been married 25 years, and we share our life with you all. And we hope that you grow, because we'll be growing while we're going through the process. Remember to like and rate the podcast. It's available on every podcast platform there is. So go subscribe. We need you all to go subscribe, like, rate, share it. It's going to be coming on these various channels. And what else do we have? I think that's it.
That's it. Love yourself.
Love with that.
Love
we'll be back
significant
next week,
other.
and we just wanted to show some love and do a little surprise first episode. We didn't want to announce it and stuff. So we'll see you next week. We love you. Take care and be safe. And always remember, life is a script. It's time to write yours. I had to add that in there.
Yes.